blaze.
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth in Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also, become a member by joining Truth in Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy.
By the time I met the people, I just took them for who they were. I wasn't starstruck at the time. When I met Seal, I mean, he was homeless when he did that first record. They found him on a park bench in the UK. He had nothing. And he just accepted some incredible talent. And he was lucky that Trevor Horn saw that talent and knew what to do with it. Also, a guy that was very instrumental in all the writing of Seal's first hits was a guy named Guy Zigworth, producer in England, who I met him doing a gig with Bernie Worrell. And so, I just kind of fell into it all. And I never really thought about it. I never contrived to meet anybody. It was never anything like that. It was just, to me, it just seemed like the next job. I got to support myself, so it's the next job. And some of them were fun, and some of them were real work. There were times when I was like, I thought I'd never feel this, but there were times where I couldn't wait to get out of the studio. When I got home, I didn't want to hear anything with a beat. If it was music, it had to have no beat, violins or something, because all day long I'm getting hammered. So I wouldn't trade all that for anything. It's incredibly fun.
What do you listen to mostly on your own if you're going to go listen to music?
Okay. Sometimes I'll listen to something I'm in the process of doing, just to check it on a lot of different speakers. But if stuff I love to listen to, I'll pull out Miles Davis tribute to Jack Johnson album with John McLaughlin on it, Billy Cobham, or I'll pull out some Herbie Hancock Headhunters, or John McLaughlin, I've seen Weather Reports, I've seen the Body Electric. There's a John McLaughlin album, I forget the name of it, that I want to say Extrapolation, but I'm not sure. It's just two guitars, left and right. Killer. I'll listen to Steely Dan. Sometimes I'll listen to the Beatles. I'll listen to old funk records. Like some of my favorite records. Knee Deep by Parliament Funkadelic.
I'm wearing the shirt for that one.
Funkin' for Jamaica, Tom Brown. Tell Me Something Good, Rufus. I just love real music, so I'll listen to anything that's real. Nowadays it's so much different, because you not only hear the people, but you can see them now. So it's a different experience. Something you might not like just audio, you'll like it because of the content that you're viewing at the same time. Some things that you wouldn't like viewing it, you might just like it better just the audio. But mostly what I look for is new, young, enthusiastic people that are slamming it. Like, what's the name of that band? I want to say Skinny Puppy, but it isn't that. I'm drawing a blank here.
Snarky?
Yes. Love those guys.
They are cool, yeah.
Mono Neon. Oh, man.
Love him. Yeah.
I love that. You know, I listen to a lot of the new things that people are doing, that they're pushing the envelope further. I love that. And I love the young enthusiasm of what's happening today. And the musicianship is off the chain most of the time, which I really like. And I love that, you know, like, there's one thing I did pay, there was Zildjian Cymbals started doing this thing, Zildjian Live. And they would have, I think it's Snarky Puppy doing all the music. And they have different drummers come on. But as a result, they're playing, you know, much different music than they would normally play. But it's killer. So I've been checking a lot of that. So I mix the old with the very new, you know.
Yeah.
And I really love this this album. Just for the pure melody of it, is an album that was done in the 90s by this French group, but it's called Deep Forest. And they made this record from all these Indians they had recorded in the rainforest. You know, most people would think it was corny, but I love the melodies, and I could listen to it over and over again. So, really, anything good, you know, I'm open to.
You know, you've played with so many people. It's incredible when you step back and look at it, I'm sure. But when I was just going through some of your, you know, live performances on YouTube recently, I saw that you've even played with one of my favorite guitar players, Eric Gales, at a show.
Eric's special. Eric's a special a man. I mean, when I met Eric, I didn't even know who he was. I'd never heard of Eric Gales, right? I mean, that's crazy. So I got a call. The way I got that happened was I got a call from a promoter in Germany. He put a band together with Eric Gales, T.M. Stevens, and me. And he worked with all of us, so he knew. He's one of these guys that knows how to put a combination of people together. And so none of us, you know, I knew TM. I had met TM several times. You know, we had the same bank in New York, so I'd see him all the time. But I never heard of Eric Gales. So I looked him up on YouTube, like you would do, and he freaked me out. I'd never heard anyone play guitar like that. So I called him up.
Yeah.
I called him up and I said, "Hey, man, I never heard of you before, but I just watched you. You're playing your ass off. Give me a call." You know, so he gave me a call, and we didn't rehearse or anything. And from the first gig, it was slamming. From the first gig, it was like we had played together our whole lives. So that was a really fun experience because Eric, I mean, you got one of the world's greatest bass players. You know, TM, when he was going, he could play anything, absolutely anything. I heard things come out of him that were crazy good. And then Eric, who I had never heard before. So I was watching the show every night, man. I was just doing my best to hang in with these guys, and it was so much fun, so much fun. And Eric's, I know he went through a lot, you know, because when we did those gigs, he had just gotten released from prison, and I didn't know anything about Eric. I didn't know his past or anything like that, so it was a good platform. But sometimes it was crazy. We'd be doing a gig, and I could have sworn God was just shooting music into this man's head, because stuff that was coming out. And it looked effortless, him doing it. You know, it was ridiculous. But what I loved about Eric more than anything was what I like about Doug Wimbish and Skip McDonald and all the great musicians I've been fortunate enough to play with is they play for the music. It's not about ego. It's not showing off. It's musical. It reaches into your soul. And so that's what I loved about Eric.
And takes the listener on a mutual journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think an audience knows when you're honest. They know when it's real and they know when it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you know when it's real and you know when it's fake. I mean, if you're not quite there on a night, people feel it. They know it. And but that's what musicians, I think, always shoot for. That's what I always shoot for. Those moments where everything's clicking. Because they don't happen every time, you know. But when they do happen, they make you strive for that every time. And so maybe the object is to get as proficient as you can on your instrument, so even when you're having a bad night, no one knows it but you.
The muscle memory takes over.
Well, it's mostly creative energy. You know, some nights you never know. Everything's happening. Other nights, everything's fighting. You know, it's funny. Some of the best gigs are the ones you don't have any time to think about. You're late to the gig. There's people in the room when you're setting up, waiting. You know, those are the great gigs because there's no forethought and people just let things happen. But that's the main thing. When you're in that zone of good music, you really, it's hard for you to settle for anything less in a musical environment. And so I was really lucky being able to play with people that were way better than me and were willing to put up with me. And so now if I'm in that same situation where I've got to put up with somebody, it's given me the wisdom and the forgiveness to nurture rather than get disappointed, you know, to help that musician, pull them along.
What's typically going through your mind when you're in the middle, you know, you're in the midst of that type of thing, you know, where you're playing with the others and it's gelling, and, you know, are you actually thinking about what future, you know, fills you might do or anything like that, or is it just all instinctual? What's going through your mind?
Well, the music dictates what I do. What I hear I'm not thinking about anything. I think it's a product of playing with records, growing up playing with records. If you do that, it's not any fun unless you're part of the music. It forces you to play musically. So when I play with a group, I listen to the total sound. I'm not listening to me. So I wouldn't think, oh, I could fit a fill in here, or if that crosses my mind, I'm not really in the music. So, you know, I heard Steve Gadd say it once, and it's true. I mean, the music plays me, basically. You know, like if I'm playing where the music sounds horrible, what I'm hearing sounds horrible, that's how I sound. Horrible. I try to fit into wherever I am and make it all work. So any judgments I make are musical judgments where I try to leave enough room to let things happen and then nurture what does happen. And if something isn't working, I will change what I'm doing to make it work. So I look at it as a totally supportive role. So if I'm doing any thinking when I'm in that zone, it's, oh man, where this is going, oh, it'd be great if I broke it down to a whisper in 3 bars. You know, that kind of thought might come in, you know. But no, it's I think it's just instinctual. The music, it's like you know, it's like I'm hooked up to an electronic circuit, and someone puts a little current, and my arm goes like that. You know, it's your ears. What comes in, you know, and I don't think I've ever listened to myself only, and I don't think you can play music that way. You have to listen to the total sound everyone's making, and it has to be supported by everybody playing. And you can feel that, and the audience can feel that too. And that's where the magic is. That communication, that higher level of communication. And I think it's the ultimate communication on the planet, because frequency holds everything together. Our bodies, this mouse, all has its own resonant frequency. That's what holds the whole planet together, the whole universe. So it's all music. And like water, I think we need that. And so thank God for the internet, where we can tune into someone playing some blazing stuff that moves you, you know, or like, you know, I used to drive to New York when I was working at Sugarhill. I used to make that journey from Connecticut, and there was always a traffic jam at the George Washington Bridge getting onto it, going over to New Jersey, where they were located. And those traffic jams, I would either get out my sticks and practice, or I turned in the classical station and closed the windows. And it made everything move a lot different. You know, just, you know, the classical orchestra music, you know, which has nothing to do with a traffic jam, but it kind of made everything like a dance then, and it made it go quicker. So
Symphony
music
of life.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked to some of the great funksters in the world, man. I'm sure you're surprised by some of the answers, and not surprised by some of the answers.
But when you look back, Keith, is there a single piece of work you feel the most satisfied or proud of having done?
Probably Major Malfunction. If I had to pick something I had done that still stands up, and I can, you know, I don't, the original that was uncut up and everything. That was I think that was one of my favorites. And this chess project I've been working on, that's in that category too. That's one of those records that'll stand the test of time. So yeah, I think I'm probably most proud of that. And some work I did with some of it was released but never released properly, with this wonderful guitarist in England named Mano Ventura, who he told me he wanted me to play his music, and he sent me his music, and I said, I can't play this. I mean, it was way beyond me. But he nurtured me along, and I saw the musical beyond with him, so I was really proud of a group that I played in with him. As far as the instrument goes, because I've never been one to be able to play a fill for the sake of playing a fill, or put in things for the sake of putting them. They have to musically work. And his music required me to be on 10 all the time as far as output. Not necessarily, you know, the dynamic range of the band was incredible. So I'm not talking about loudness. I'm talking about the output of ideas. The music required that. It didn't sound right if that wasn't there. So it was the first chance I really had that be able to come out of me. And so that's one of my favorite live experiences, is playing with that man, who's should be a national treasure in England, man. I mean, every guitar player has picked this guy's brain, never talks about him. All the famous guitar players, every single one of them. This guy is a genius, one of the few geniuses I've met. And and I've met quite a few, but Yeah, I would say Major Malfunction. You know, it's just one of those records. You know, it was the right time, and I had all the ingredients around me to do it. All the right people, the right energy. So that one, that would be my favorite.
And is there one performance that stands out, one experience on the road that leaps out that was just an unforgettable experience for some reason?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow. There's so many. Gee. Well, you know, I'd have to. There were, there were always great experiences with everybody I played with. Um, but and I remember so many wonderful experiences with everybody I played with. But I think probably I'd have to say playing with Eric Gales. That was pretty high up there because every night it was killing every night. It was just great every night. And Tackhead, that was a great musical experience being able to play with those guys. But I think the most fun I had to be being on the road with Sugarhill opening up for Parliament Funkadelic every night, because me and Doug got to watch those guys every night, and that was really fun. You know, they had Maceo Parker, they had Felipe Wynn on stage, Bernie Worrell, you know, and they had Dennis Chambers playing drums and Skeet Curtis playing bass, and you're talking about a rhythm section, you know, you just can't be beat. And I think Skeet and Dennis had turned down Weather Report to do Funkadelic, actually. I think Zawinul or someone heard them both, you know, because they were monsters. So every night I was behind the drum riser, and Doug was, you know, near the bass amps, and we'd check those guys out. And it got to be where we could just walk on stage, and the guys in the band would. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. You know, it was you know, so many people in a band and such a huge groove, and like 20,000 people all doing the same dance every, you know, and just the whole auditorium just moving, and unthrashable times. I think that one sticks in my mind quite a bit because it was all brand new, you know, and everybody that was on the shows, because there were a lot of other bands on the shows, were all so good, so fun to watch, you know, all these bands. And I was really lucky to be there.
I think that was the '83 tour. So I was at the show they did at the Beverly Theater in Los Angeles, which got released as a record later on.
Really?
Yeah, and that band, man, it was all those people you mentioned, but also it had all the guitar players there, Eddie Hazel and Michael Hampton and Gary Scheidner. And
Yep, they were all there. Blackbird McKnight.
Yep, Blackbird was there. And Bootsy came out on some of the shows, too, for like a cameo.
I never saw Bootsy come out. George, actually, when we were on the road, Clip, Gary Scheider, he did the frontman thing. George would only come out to like the major cities, like, you know, where they really needed him, like DC, you know, Detroit, places like that. But otherwise, the in-between gigs he wouldn't make. But boy, when George was on the stage, woo, it was hot. That band was hot. And that, I think that's the best band Funkadelic ever had. That Knee Deep tour, that had to be the best band they ever had. But I know other people would disagree with me, you know, because there were a lot of great musicians that went through that band. But that was, you know, I had never even heard of Funkadelic. And next thing you know, I'm on the road with them, right? So I think that's why it's such a striking memory for me, because it was all brand new, you know. Like Doug and Skip, they knew everything about Funkadelic.
Well, and Tackhead did some covers later on of Funkadelic tracks.
Oh yeah, man, because we loved Funkadelic. We knew all the grooves, you know, and Pleasure too. We used to steal their grooves and play them on stage too. Those boys were amazing on stage. They're really nice guys, and we that whole time period, I got to meet so many wonderful musicians that didn't let me down. You know, and a lot of them I didn't even know about, but they were just, I don't know, for some reason, really good musicians seem to be some of the nicest people I've ever met, and so I don't know whether that goes hand in hand, but not to say you have to be a musician to be nice or anything, but like most of the really great musicians I've met, they don't talk about music much when you talk to them, you know.
There's people. They're people too.
Yeah, they just want to hang out, you know. I remember we were on a show with the Roots, and I had never heard them, you know. And the only one that in the band that would talk to us was their DJ. He was in the dressing room, and that, so it was about a month later, I heard a record in a club they were playing. I said, "Who is that?" Because it just killed me. I loved it. And he said, "Oh, that's the Roots." And I went, "Oh, man, we just played with those guys." And so I was really disappointed I didn't get to know the band, you know, but they were hiding out. It was a weird kind of setup they had at this concert. And that same concert, John McLaughlin was playing, and Dennis Chambers was playing with him. And when me and Dennis met, we both had hair, you know, and I shaved it off early. But Dennis waited quite a while. So there's this big outdoor place, and he's playing with McLaughlin, and he sees me from the stage, so he takes his hat off to show me he shaved his head, you know. And then we went backstage, and we were all messing with Dennis, saying he looked like the cook. He looked like Spanky in our gang, you know, we're throwing jokes at him, you know, snapping on him. And McLaughlin loved it, you know, and we talked about everything but music. And so it's just, I think it's more of a camaraderie of, it's like being in the military together. You know, all the pain of travel and the hotel and being away from your family, you know, you can relate. The music is secondary, you know, it's like that's what you're there for, you know, everybody knows that.
Like the fraternity, and, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all the stuff you got to put up with to play music. I mean, that's, to me, all the traveling and everything was just a means to an end. You know, as long as I got to play that night, that's what was important. You know, the bad food, you know, the weird hotels, you know, the almost traffic accidents.
Necessary evils, yeah.
Well, you do a lot of traveling. I mean, I think I'm blessed to have made it through, all of us that are still here, because traveling, so much can happen to you. You know, I've been so close so many times, and but I think the musical fraternity, they got to stick together and support each other, and I love to see that, you know, and there's nothing better. And that's what I loved about Eric's gig. That was very memorable because Eric and TM and me would let people sit in every night. And it brought a whole nother dimension to the whole thing, you know. I remember I did a gig with them at the NAMM show. I must have let 4 or 5 drummers sit in that night, you know, because they all wanted to play with Eric. I get it, you know, it was fun to play with. So he had his regular drummer, and then he had this other, I forget his name, this great, they were all brilliant. And so I told Eric, I said, you know, got to let all these guys sit in. He goes, yeah, I was going to ask you. I said, yeah, man. So the next day, I had this drum mob to hang out with, and we went and descended on all the stands, you know, in a gang. We had a gang of drummers. So I think it's, you know, the camaraderie amongst musicians. I focus in on that. the competition I don't really care for. As long as it's healthy, you know. Like, I remember Funkadelic let us use their gear one time, you know, because they liked us while we were opening up for us, and they gave us a few little explosions and stuff. And so we sound checked on their gear one time, and they came out and said, no, you can't use our gear. You sound a little too good. But it was honest, you know what I mean? It was honest.
That was actually, I remember that show too. There's so many musicians, but it was also one of the loudest shows I've seen. I mean, that was really loud, that Funkadelic show.
Well, they had, I forget the name of the sound company, but it might have been Showco was the name of it. But the first, when we walked in for the first time, the first show, Skeet hit a note on the bass, shook my whole insides. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But you're lucky to have seen those shows, because, you know, not much of that got recorded. Video, you know,
the lack of video is a real shame. You know, but when you mentioned George Clinton, though, I also thought about one of his protege bands in the mid 80s was Jimmy G and the Federation of Tackheads. And I heard there was like a legal thing over that with your guy's name. And what do you remember about that?
Well, we got to know George pretty good, you know. And Doug came up with the name Tackhead, Doug Wimbish. He came up with the name Tackhead, and then we were looking for an album cover for it. And Skip had the New York Times, and there was a picture of the Statue of Liberty. He goes, "That's our album cover." So everyone, okay. So we had an artist draw it up, and that was it. So people associated the things coming out of the head, you know, who knows. But Tackhead was like a nickname for like a homeboy, you know, so we got to know George pretty good, and we're playing a club in London, and Clip is in the front row. We're doing a Tackhead gig. And Clip came backstage and he said, "Hey man, George is getting ready to steal your name. I just thought I'd let you know." His cousin, his cousin or his son had the band. So George put it out. And fortunately, we had a lawyer that was a good friend, and he just, you know, we had put out several records with Tackhead, so we just, you know, Clinton didn't fight it, you know. As a matter of fact, Clip said, he basically said, "Well, George liked the name, but I think he forgot where he heard it," you know, because I don't think George even did it on purpose, because as soon as, it was no big legal thing, it was our lawyer calling the company lawyer and saying, "Look, you know, here's the deal. They've released these many records under that name. It's copywritten," you know, and George just went, "Okay, no problem." But that record's still out there, you know.
Well, it's still out there, yeah. But do you think that hindered their promotion of that record after that?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I didn't think about it, but you're probably right. It probably did. But that was the one thing we could call our own, was Tackhead, you know, and we weren't going to let anybody have it. George Clinton, nobody. The King of England, we didn't care, you know. So when we were young and full of ourselves, you know, and to us, George, you know, he might have been the godfather of funk, but he was just a man like anybody else, you know. So, but George didn't take it personally, and you know, I think George had just forgot where he heard it. I think it was that simple, you know, because Doug and Skip had spent, I never went to George's house, but Doug and Skip went up there and spent quite a while recording with him up there for a while.
They ended up changing to Incorporated Thing Band for the next record. But it was at that same time, too, when that movie Tapeheads came out, and I felt like that was also some, like, overlap with what you guys were doing. It's all like around the same time frame.
Yeah, we were a big influence, you know, Radiohead, you know, they were all in the front row. Our manager, like I told you, our manager used to tell us, "You've got to get a vocalist, because these bands are going to, you know," I mean, any given gig, we had Living Color in the front row, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, Radiohead, Swan, you know, all these bands. And we knew we were doing something good because we were influencing other bands. We could see it. But at the same time, it was bittersweet because we just couldn't seem to find a way to capitalize on that, you know, because we couldn't help ourselves. We kept pushing ground, you know, and then when everyone else started doing more or less the same thing, I think everyone in the band was bored and wanted to move on to something else. So we started doing, Skip McDonald started a band, Little Axe, and we started doing that. That took off, and I did a lot of sessions for Lee Scratch Perry, and, you know, Adrian opened up the whole reggae thing, you know, and so.
Did you ever work with Sly and Robbie?
No. Never did. Never even got to meet him. Never even got to meet him. But I got to meet Bootsy a few times. That was one of my heroes. And I got to work with Bim Sherman for quite a while. Did Junior Delgado. But Lee Scratch Perry had to be the most interesting out of the bunch.
How can people keep up with what you have going on? And you have this like samples business too, and that kind of stuff, right? So why don't you talk about that a little?
Well, I'm not only I kind of ground broke sampling CDs. So unscrupulously, there was this sample house that I was doing them for, and they fell to the wayside and the guy became like a major pirate, and you know, ripped me off for untold amounts of money. My accountant was in shock, which I've never seen. But Vinny Caliuto told me, he said, "Keith, man, you should have Long Tall Corn. Your sample CDs are in every studio I go in. Everybody's got them. Everyone's using them." So I got fed up because the guy was selling it all over the internet. My lawyers couldn't. He was so slippery. So I just put it up for free for like about a year, and it made him disappear. So recently, you know, people were bugging me. They kept asking me about where they could get my sample CDs. So this guy started selling them again. So I put them up at a decent price for people. And I plan on I've got a few more in the works that I'm going to release. But I've got a website. It's KeithLeBlanc.com. And you can download them there, or you can go to my Facebook page, and there's links there to my website where you can download them. And that's the only place you can get them, because really, if you get them anywhere else, you won't have a legal license to use it. You know, if you bought it from AMG, which was this guy's company, he didn't have a legal license from me to sell it. So it's amazing, you know, that the people that don't do the creating, if someone does the packaging, you know, they forget about the person that created it sometimes. So, but those sample CDs, they're a wide range of different styles, and the most comments I got on them from musicians was they inspire them to write music, because it's not just beats. It's not your average sample CDs. It's they're almost like little microcosms of songs, you know, ideas.
And grooves,
so
yeah.
Yep, and grooves. So a lot of times, you know, if I'm stuck for an idea, I'll pull out my library of that, and you know, it'll start me down the road of doing something that I like, or might work on something. I use the stuff myself. And Adrian Sherwood mixed some of the titles too. So he's done some outrageous dubs, and it's all done on all analog discs. You know, Neves, SSL, MCI, tape, top shelf microphones, and it's really hard to get that done these days. A lot of people are making sample CDs in their bedroom now, through plugins. And some of that stuff is great. And if they download it from me, they've got a proper license, so if they use it in a hit record, they're not going to get sued or anything, and I can't say that if they buy it from AMG. That guy's very slippery.
Have you heard any of your samples and hits that you weren't part of?
Oh yeah, yep, quite a few times, and it's always inspiring to me to hear someone, because people they always hear something different, So there was this really huge group that actually used something, and they didn't combine it with their music. They just used it on its own. And that was the only time I felt a little twinge, but I didn't. I mean, life's too short, you know what I mean? And I can make more, and that's what I do. So, people don't have to worry. You might as well say it's royalty free if you get it from me, So, but I have heard it a lot, mostly in the movie soundtracks. A lot. I've heard a lot of my stuff, and I think that would be a fun job. I'd love to do a movie soundtrack someday. I think I'd be good at it.
I would think so. Seems like
I
a good
hope
fit.
I'd be good at it.
Seems like a good fit to me. Yeah.
But no one's ever given me a chance to do that. So, I did do one little thing for a movie. I forget which movie it was, but they actually had me in with the screen. I did a little percussion thing for it, but it was just so quick. But some of my favorite. I'll tell you what. I love the soundtrack to Blade Runner. Parts of the soundtrack to Blade Runner, Vangelis. You ask me what I like to listen to? That harmonica kills me every time. I love that combination. So.
Excellent. Hey, Keith, thank you so much. Your stories, phenomenal. People are going to love it. I really appreciate you sharing all the time and all the memories and all of the musical insights.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I mean, what's more fun than talking about yourself? Who doesn't like to do that? I mean, come on. If someone will listen, that's a wonderful thing. Thank you for listening and inviting me to do this, because not many, I'm not really a household name, and I never set out to be, but I don't mind sharing, especially now. And I really am grateful for the opportunity. And thank you once again.
Well, thank you for all the great music through the years. And continue to take good care, be safe, and look forward to seeing you out there on the road in the not too distant future, I hope.
Well, we're looking at October 2021. Tackhead.
Write the calendar.
On You Sound 40th anniversary. Somewhere in London. We'll see how far it flies. That'll be the next big one, I think.
All right. We'll keep an eye out for that. Take good care.
All right. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon,
shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkinstuff.net, and linking through funkinstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkinstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkinstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.